That's so epic. I had to step out of your way so you could see it. I just want to say this. First of all, welcome to Sego Church. Secondly, I love, Pastor Chris, what you just talked about, the idea of raising funds to send kids on missions trips. Some of you might be like, why am I spending money on some other person's kid? I'll just be honest with you. Like, when I was on my very first missions trip, and I can honestly say without a doubt, I wouldn't be standing here today if I hadn't gone on that trip 35 years ago, like for real. And so there's so much power in that. So I'm excited to hear in 2 weeks coming back, not just what God did, but what God is doing in the hearts of those who went, in the lives that were changed, but will be changed as well. And so I'm excited to hear that. So as Chris mentioned, I'm Jeff Wendt. So glad to be here. Last week I had the privilege to speak at a church in Texas. Today I get to speak 5 minutes from my house, so I'm so grateful. And so for the past few weeks, we've been in a series called Believe It or Not, focusing on some of the greatest Bible stories of all time. From the Exodus in Egypt, where the Israelites literally walked through the middle of the Red Sea on dry ground, to the walls of Jericho crumbling to the ground after 7 days of walking, a huge shout, and some help from heaven, right? Today I get to talk about an absolute classic. I get to talk about David defeating Goliath, right? Like, this is one of the greatest. Thank you. But I will say this, before we get into the play-by-play, I want to take a moment and speak to the historical authenticity of the story, okay? As I Googled the words, did David and Goliath actually happen? This is what I Googled. These were the result pages came up, and this is what it said. It said, how have we misunderstood the real story of David and Goliath? Question mark. This is one article. Here's another one. The biblical warrior Goliath may not have been so giant. Okay? Here's another one. David and Goliath, history or legend? It's interesting, right? Enough rhetoric to begin to create doubt in the mind of the reader to the reality of the historical accuracy of what's been taught in synagogues and Sunday school classrooms for over 3,000 years. So we can look a little deeper at our Google findings, or we could take a deeper look at the Bible as an historically accurate document. To this point, here's the Institute for Creation Research. This is what they state about the Bible, about the historical accuracy of the Bible. The Bible has become a significant source book for secular archaeology, helping to identify such ancient figures as Sargon, which is in Isaiah 21, Sennacherib, which is Isaiah 37:37, Horam of Gazer, Joshua 10:33, Hazar, Joshua 15:27, and the nation of the Hittites, which is in Genesis 15:20. The biblical record, unlike other scriptures, is historically set. Therefore, it's open itself up to testing and verification. See, sometimes when people look at the Bible, they think, well, it's just a book of theology, right? It's just a book about what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And oftentimes they overlook that it's actually a historical document. Two of the greatest 20th century archaeologists, William F. Albright and Nelson Gluck, both lauded the Bible, even though, this is huge, even though they were non-Christian and secular in their training and personal beliefs, as being the single most accurate source document from history. Over and over again, the Bible has been found to be accurate in its places, dates, and records of events. No other religious document comes even close. Please understand, there's a lot of religious documents out there today that are saying one thing that have not been proven at all. Whatever religious book it might be, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Apocrypha, whether it's the Book of Mormon, there's no historical evidence that archaeologists can point to their validity. In the 19th century critics used to deny the history of the Hittites, the Horites, the Edomites, and various other groups, nations and cities mentioned in the Bible. Those critics have long been silenced by the archaeologist Spade. A few critics dare to question the geographical and ethnological reliability of the Bible. The names of over 40 different kings of various countries mentioned in the Bible. This is still all a quote, by the way, just letting you know. I'm still reading this quote from what they found. Over 40 different kings of various countries mentioned in the Bible have been found in contemporary documents, meaning at the very same time that it happened, and inscriptions outside of the Old Testament. says in the Old Testament, they found it in contemporary documents, inscriptions, archaeological digs outside of the Old Testament, and are always consistent with the times and places associated with the Bible. The Bible is proven to be more historically and archaeologically accurate than any other ancient book. It has been subjected to the minutest scientific textual analysis possible to humanity and has been proven to be authentic in every way. And then it closed with this statement. Nothing exists in ancient literature that has been even remotely as well confirmed in accuracy as the Bible. The Bible has been tested extensively so it can be trusted implicitly. And please don't ever forget this. It's more than merely an historical document. It's to which the modern scientific mind has minimized it to. As a follower of Christ, we know it's more. We should know it's more than the mere word of man. We can trust it implicitly because every word is inspired by God, as Paul conveys to Timothy in 2 Timothy 3:16 when he says this, all scripture is inspired by God and useful to teach us what is true, and make us realize what is wrong in our lives. It corrects us when we're wrong and teaches us to do what is right. So in light of all of that, when you're asked, do you believe it or not? Let me just say this statement. If you trust the source, you can trust the story. Right? If you trust the source, you can trust the story. It's more than just a document. It's more than just a book. It's more than just a historical document to be dissected and read. It literally is the God-breathed. It's the Word of God breathed by the Holy Spirit to men, through men, to us today. So if you can trust the source, you can trust the story. So with that in mind, let's jump into the story. Now, this is a story of a battle between a shepherd boy named David and a man of war named Goliath. Now, while this story may not specifically translate to you today, to what you're currently facing, unless you're facing a giant named Goliath in the valley of Elah, and your name is just happens to be David, which obviously none of us are. Bottom line, though, there are principles that we can take from the story and apply to the battle that's happening in our lives right now. Now, maybe when I use the word battle and I say the battle happening in your lives, maybe for you, you're like, oh, yep, I got it, it's clear. Maybe for some of you, you're like, well, what battle? What are you talking about? What fight? So let me say this. As a person who's been battling for a long, long time, I have two thoughts when it comes to battle. First of all, when your life is focused on following Jesus and living for him first, you can anticipate a battle is coming your way. Just anticipate it. It's called predictable resistance. If you're living for Jesus, resistance from the enemy, aka the devil, it's coming your way. It's predictable, so you don't have to be surprised by it. I know even in myself, I don't know how many times like all of a sudden spiritual attack, a battle is coming, and I start freaking out. God, where are you? He's like, I'm right here. Right here, Jeff. I know you're freaking out, but I'm not, right? Too often, I start freaking out. Maybe you're that way. I'm surprised by it. Like one of our core values as a family is kingdom first. Literally, we've arranged our lives around the kingdom first. Because Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and everything else will be added after that. So we've decided to orient our lives around the kingdom of God first and foremost. So why on earth am I surprised when a battle all of a sudden comes up and comes my way? Kind of crazy, right? So it's predictable, so don't be surprised by it. On the flip side, if you're a follower of Christ and you're not currently facing resistance in at least one front of your life, you need to take another look at how closely you're following Christ. Now, I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but there's a reality here. If you're not currently, if you're not a threat to the devil's kingdom, he doesn't waste his time and effort. His resources are limited. I think sometimes we get in this thing where we think that God and the devil are equal. Please understand, there's no equal here. Like God is in all places at all times, has access to everything. There is no difference. Like he is as much in this moment as he is in the valley of Elah right now with David and Goliath. There is no, we're caught in time, God is not. The devil is caught in time. Right? If you're not a threat to him, he's not going to waste his resources on you. So please, Know that a lack of battle in your life doesn't make you more spiritually mature. It may just mean that you're not a threat. Number 2, here are a few fronts where the devil attacks, fronts that you may be battling in right now that maybe you don't even realize it, right? Walking daily with Jesus, that's honestly a battle. A God-honoring marriage, that's a battle, right? And please understand, it's never flesh and blood, right? It's always spirits, principalities, and powers in the heavenly realms. Like, our battle isn't against our spouse. Raising kids in a godly home, that is a for real battle. Building a godly business is a battle. Personally, Allie and I, we've not won and even lost business because we're open with our faith. Having godly friendships, that's a for real battle. So you're starting to see a little bit where the devil attacks. Starting to see this just a little bit? You guys with me? Did I come out too strong? Did I come out too hot? You guys get a little bit? Nick's like, whoa, take it easy. There we go. So if you're living a kingdom-first life, I promise you your life is going to be under siege at some point, whether you realize it's the devil or not. So today when we read about David defeating Goliath, let's see what principles we can learn from their battle to help us fight the battles that are before us today. So the story of David defeating Goliath is found in 1 Samuel 17. I encourage you, please write this down, read it afterwards, go through it. There's only so much that we can talk about in 35 minutes, which I have 20 minutes left, so buckle up. So first of all, 1 Samuel 17. So it starts off saying the Philistines, which I'm going to pause and insert something here, right? Or just mention something. So you might be like the Philistines. You've heard of the Philistines before? Right? It's ancient biblical name. What on earth does the Philistines have to do with us today in our world, in our life? So the Philistines are from Philistia, which would be modern day Gaza. A little bit of a war going on in Gaza today. So I don't know if you saw last night the news, we decided to join the war with Israel versus Iran. This is the first time since 1941 we've joined another country's war. So Iran, you might be thinking, what on earth does that have to do with us? Well, that's Babylon, and that's Persia, right? So, and it's interesting that you're like, okay, so what does this have to do with our situation today or what we're talking about today? So one of the missile defense systems in Israel is called David's sling. So please understand, we're not living in Bible times, right? Like, we're not physically in the Valley of Elah right now. We're not in the lion's den with Daniel in Babylon, which becomes Persia. But please understand, even though we're not living in Bible times, we are living in the times that the Bible has prophesied would be. If we're not, if for no other reason than that, please understand this Bible story should to you. Now back to the story of the Philistines. Now muster their army for battle and camp between Sakah in Judah and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And just so you know, like when it comes to Old Testament Bible names, none of you know if I pronounced those right or wrong, did you? The trick is you read quick with confidence and be like, oh, sounds like he knows what he's talking about there. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the Valley of Elah. So the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hills with the valley between them. Then Goliath, right, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore, now these are all the fun things Chris talked about a couple weeks ago with the flannel board, like when you're in Sunday school. Here's the giant and you're adding all these different things to him. He had bronze leg armor. He carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of the spear that he was using was heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him to carry a shield. He had so much armor he needed help carrying it into battle. Right? Goliath stood and shouted and taunted. Why are you coming out to fight? He called. I am a Philistine champion, but you are only the servants of Saul. He already begins to put them down, right? Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel. Send me a man who will fight. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Now fast forward to verse 16. For 40 days, every evening every morning and every evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. Think about that. Twice a day. Twice a day, you get you're all amped up, you're all suited up, you got your gear on, you're going out to the battle lines, and twice a day, this is what happens for 40 days. Up until this point, 80 times total so far, the giant strutted, the giant shouted, the giant terrorized and demoralized the Israelite army, all the while defying the God of Israel. See, the problem here is that the Israelites allowed the words of a mortal man to defy their immortal God. They allowed it. Twice a day, for 40 days, they allowed it. My first observation is this: when we go into battle, our words matter. Our words matter. Proverbs 18:21 tells us this: life and death are in the power of the tongue. Words matter. They actually matter. Words that we allowed to be spoken over us matter. Maybe you're in a place, maybe it was a boss, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a coach that said, you'll never become, you'll always be this way. Someone spoke that over you. Words that we come into agreement with matter. Maybe what was spoke when you were a child, you'll never be. It's still there. And somehow, some way, that words that someone spoke over you has created a limiting belief system in your mind. And you're like, well, I'll never be because so-and-so I said I would never be. Saul and his army allowed the giant to speak over them. They allowed him to defy their God. They allowed terror and fear to run free. They allowed the giant's words to shake them deeply. Yet, worst of all, they allowed the words of a mortal man to defy what they knew about their immortal God. See, the longer that they allowed this to go on, the greater level of agreement they came into. You ever heard the illustration of the frog in hot water? That whole idea, you have boiling water, you throw a frog in, it'll jump out immediately, right? But if it's lukewarm water, room temperature water, you put the frog in, you turn the heat up on the stove. It's kind of a morbid little illustration. Anyways, the frog eventually dies because it just gets acclimated to its environment. See, when you allow words in your environment to speak down to you, you eventually become okay with them and acclimated to them to the point of agreement with them. And that's what they did. That's what they did. See, when this happened, the giant became bigger and their God became smaller in their mind. Let me ask you, this is for you. Are there words that you've allowed to linger in your marriage, in your family, in your business, over your life, that make the giant seem bigger and God seem smaller? Ask yourself that. See, the longer that you allow those words to linger, the greater level of agreement you come into with them. And those words, rather than God's word, will begin to frame your current and future reality. So if this is you, don't feel bad. Don't be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Here's what you do. First of all, you ask God for forgiveness. You say, God, please forgive me for allowing these words to be spoken over my life. God, please forgive me for coming into agreement with them in my life. I disagree with them, and I stand on your word in Jesus' name. That's what you do. You might have to do that a dozen times a day. It's okay. Just do it. Now back to the battle. When David arrived at the battlefield, one of the first things that was said to him is, have you seen the giant? Have you seen the giant? See, the Israelite army had been looking at the same problem, the giant, twice a day for 40 days. It would take someone with a fresh perspective and a heart after God to help them see the battle clearly. David's response gives insight to this, to his perception of the battle. This is verse 26. He said, who is this pagan Philistine? Anyway, right? He sees the giant and he's standing back. Who is this guy anyways that he is allowed to defy the armies of the living God? Have you forgot who you are? Have you forgot who your God is? Why would you allow him to do that? His response reveals his perspective. Guys, when we go into battle, our perspective matters. Their focal point was the giant, this ominous figure that stood before them, shouted before them, strutted before them. Their perspective was limited because of what, their perspective was limited to what they could physically see. But David's perspective was somewhere entirely different, right? His focal point wasn't fixed on the giant, it was fixed on God. It wasn't fixed on what he could physically see, but what couldn't physically be seen. Let me ask you this. When you're in the midst of a battle, when the giant is before you, when the God, where are you moment wants to happen, and God's like, I'm right here, Jeff, just chill out. What are your eyes fixed on? What are your eyes fixed on? My eyes were fixed on a business that wasn't happening as fast as I thought it would. God, where are you? My eyes were fixed on a diagnosis that was unbelievable to me at the time. God, where are you? Are your eyes fixed on what's seen or unseen? Are your eyes fixed on the size of the giant in your life or the size of God in your life? When this phrase, have you seen the giant? Have you seen the giant? When that happens, our response should be, well, have you seen our God? Have you seen our God? What we focus on matters. When we go into battle, when we're battling, when we're fighting, spiritually, you have to know your perspective matters. David didn't mistake the size of the giant for the size of his God. That was the only way a shepherd boy could go before a king and ask permission to fight a giant. That's it. Listen to how he asked. This is 1 Samuel 17:32. Don't worry about this Philistine. Can you imagine that? I have an 18-year-old son. I have a 13-year-old son. Okay. Like, that's what I would be like. If I'm King Saul, like, okay, buddy. All right, fella, go back. Go hang out. Right? Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. This is Saul. Don't be ridiculous, Saul says. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy. And he's been a man of war since his youth. There'll be times when you go into battle that people may call you ridiculous. They may pat you on your head and send you on your way. They may say that you have no chance of winning, you're overmatched and underskilled. Now let me say this, if these voices are wise and trusted counselors and advisors, take heed to their word. Listen to it. They might be helping you avoid a battle that inevitably, if you just kept going, you might take head on that you don't need to. If it's someone you trust, then listen. But if not, push forward like David did in verse 34. David persisted. I love that word. He persisted, period. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion and a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. Who is this kid, right? This is awesome. I've done this to both lions and bears. I love it's lions, plural, bears, plural. It's not just one time. It's not just like an outlier. It's like this seems like it happened fairly regularly, right? Lions and bears. And I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord will rescue me from the claws of the lion and bear and the bear. Excuse me, I'm going to start over. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. You see, David persisted and pushed forward because he knew something that Saul didn't. He knew that God had been preparing him for this moment. David had already faced man killers, right? Multiple times and was victorious. Why would the giant be any different, right? The tests that we faced in the past help us to trust that the Lord will rescue us in our present. That's what David experienced. It wasn't about his own ability. It wasn't about his own power. So let me ask you, how has God prepared you for the battle that you're currently in? How has God prepared you for the battle you're currently in? Take a moment and look back at your life. I found whenever I take a moment and look back at my life, it's clear, I'm like, oh my gosh, God was there. God was there. God was there preparing me for this moment. Okay. What test was the bear or the lion that prepared you for the giant today? And most of all, please, in your current battle, are you trusting the Lord or your own strength and skill to rescue you? Here's the thing, God will allow you to do whatever. He'll allow you to lean into him and trust him, or he'll allow you to lean into your own skills and abilities and trust that. God's given us free will, all the way back in the garden, to choose whatever we'd like to. He's like, hey, Jeff, if you want to take this on your own, good luck, buddy. Like, he's not saying that. He doesn't say good luck, buddy, like that. But he's like, it's not going to end well. I'm here for you. Just when you're done trusting your own stuff because it doesn't work, I'll be here. We could just skip that whole thing and just trust in God. The next thing that we notice in the battle about David is his posture. Because when we go into battle, our posture matters. Referring to the lions and the bears, he said, I go after it. Not a lot of fear in that statement, is there? Not a lot of flight in that statement, is there? It's all fight. That described his posture. Referring to the giant in verse 48, it tells us, as Goliath moved to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. As the giant moved closer to attack, David didn't go into a defensive position, but into an offensive posture. He ran towards the giant. You have to be like sitting there watching, what is that kid doing? He's running towards two men. Not only is one much larger and outmatches him in skill, there's two of them. He's running towards them. What is this kid thinking? He ran towards the giant, towards the battle, towards the danger. He didn't shrink back. He ran forward. In Ephesians, Paul tells us to be strong in the Lord's mighty power, to stand firm. We're not supposed to go into battle being weak and timid, but strong and courageous like Joshua was. We're not meant to run away in fear or retreat. God's empowered us to run forward towards the battle, to take ground, to prevail. David knew this, and this is why he ran toward the fight. How else could this young boy be so confident? Was it because of all of his skill, the skill in his sling? You think about a shepherd boy. Think about how many times he'd put a rock in his sling, wound up, and just lit up a tree, right? Just lit the bark off of a tree sitting there. Think about the life of a shepherd. What do? You sit around, right? You do nothing. He learned how to play harp, which helped later. He learned how to use a sling, which helped here. Think about how many times he just literally, just out of sheer boredom, 100 times a day, 150 times a day, 1,000 times a week. I mean, think about how many times he literally just practiced. Was it his own skill, his own accuracy, his own ability? No, it was none of those things. It was none of those things. His confidence was in one thing and one thing alone, as 1 Samuel 17:43-47 reveals. Goliath says, am I a dog? He's pretty ticked. He's pretty ticked that here's a boy with a sling and a staff, a stick, coming out to fight him, the man of war. He's pretty ticked. He gets pretty upset. He roared at David that you come at me with a stick. And he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. Then I like to envision David. He just replied, you come at me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come at you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel. Now, I love in the Old Testament when they start throwing out phrases like the Lord of heaven's armies. Like it hits different, right? And here's why. When you say the God of heaven's armies, the number of angels are we have no idea. Infinite, right? That's a lot in his army, right? So what could even one angel do? Well, there's a story of one angel going out into an Assyrian camp and in one night killing 180,000 Assyrian soldiers. That was one angel. Now you come back to this, the Lord of heaven's armies. Oh, wow. This just got unfair. Like for real. Whom you have defied. I love this. The God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. Pause for a second. He didn't have a sword. He went into battle with a sling, 5 stones, and a stick. But he's like, I'm going to kill you and cut off your head. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy because just in a short bit, the rock hit Goliath. He fell face forward. David took Goliath's sword and cut his head off with his sword. See, can I just say this? Even if you don't have what you need right now to go into the battle, go into the battle. Because it might not be till the middle of the battle that you have what you need to fulfill or win the battle. And then I'll give your dead body. This is so morbid and awesome. And then I'll give the dead bodies of your men to the birds of the wild, to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not by sword or spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. Those words were spoken 3,000 years ago in the Valley of Elah, in the valley of, in literally Israel, and they're echoing through all time, even last night. We have to understand this. Guys, this battle wasn't about David. We think that sometimes, wow, this is amazing, and sometimes we think the battle's about us. It's not about us, it's about God. This wasn't about the giant, it was about God. This wasn't about revealing the greatness of David, but revealing the greatness of God. This wasn't about David rescuing Israel, even though he got accolades for it. This was to show the Lord rescues his people. God wasn't the one that caused the Philistines to pick a fight with the Israelites. But he also wasn't afraid to use it to show his power to rescue the Israelites. He wasn't afraid to use that to show his people that he battles on their behalf, and that he's the one that rescues, and that he's the one that brings victory. What a powerful story, right? I'm sure you've all heard the ending. David wins. So what does this mean to us today? Why should we care about the story of a shepherd boy killing a giant? Well, maybe these questions that I'm about to ask you will show you why you should care. First of all, what giant are you facing today? What giant is it? What battle is before you? I'm just going to give you a second to think about that, just to frame that up in your mind. What battle is it? Is it inside your marriage? Is it inside your home with your kids? Is it inside the boardroom of your business? Where is it? Friendships? Your health? Now that you've identified it, let me ask you these questions. What words are you allowing to linger over your life as you face this battle? Remember, the longer you allow them to linger, the bigger they get. Where's your perspective? What are your eyes fixed upon? Is it what's right in front of you, or it's the God? What is it? What is your posture? Are you chin down or your shoulders slumped? Or are you running towards the fight? Please make no mistake, if you're a follower of Christ with breath in your lungs, there currently is or will be a battle coming your way. It's inevitable. The resistance is predictable, so don't freak out. Because I promise you, if you're a follower of Christ, you have everything you need to be victorious. As a child of God, if we don't give up, victory is certain. But how we battle, how we fight the battle, we do have a choice in that. We do. It's going to be a struggle, I promise you. But you don't have to suffer through it. You can pray, God, where are you? Or, God, there you are. I see you in the battle. Our perspective matters. So let me ask you again, what giant are you facing today? What battle is before you? If you're sick and tired of battling alone, and you're willing to just put down your pride, I encourage you.